can you give some examples of what you can do if you are a freelancer to get to the next level building a company?
What would it look like if you're just open to the ideas of collaborating with other people, finding strengths in other people, bringing people in? You know, maybe you got a deal and you're like, oh, maybe I could split this deal with someone that we could build a relationship with, you know? So like everybody could win.
What's up, guys? I am here with a good friend. What a story. But I want to introduce John Mediana. He is a chief executive officer for so many brands, and this right here is a God's plan that we're sitting here on this podcast.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
And get to talk about business. So talk about like, how did we literally were eating today. Let's hear the story.
You were eating, and then we were coming to get food, and there was no communication whatsoever. And it was just happened to be around in town. Like we have an office down the street from Assembly Hall. Y'all were eating there. And then I just walked in, I was like, what are you doing here? Like, you don't even live here, man. Like, this is, what is happening? And then like, I was just like, oh yeah, I just planned it. I scheduled this appointment.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, God, let's go.
Right, yeah, and it's a total God thing because we're filming a conference here, Nashville. Friday and Saturday in Nashville.
Where we are, we're in Nashville.
Yeah, we're not in Las Vegas.
Not in Las Vegas.
And that's the thing, and we were creating this vlog throughout the day,
Yeah.
and Nick was like, hey, let's go get a burger at the food hall.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, I walked in, I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
This is, it's crazy.
And for the people that don't even know, like, so we've known each other for many years.
Yes.
In Vegas. We've been part of the creative kind of circle in Vegas. So if your audience is just meeting me for the first time, they have no idea. They're like, who is this brown guy? This Filipino guy.
Right, so John, let's get a little backstory. So, 5 years ago, I was filming, I was, learning from Sean Cannell, and he started, Think Media. And that's where John was just, talk about like that journey with Sean.
Oh, dude, it was so fun. Me and Sean met probably like in 2012 or 2013. I can't even remember, it was so long ago, but we're all church kids. So like, I was in Vegas, he was in Vegas as a communications director for a church at that time. And then there's just like this creative energy, in this small circle of people that are just like, hey, you love doing videos, I love doing videos, I've been doing this my whole life, let's just collaborate. So it was a very collaborative kind of community that was happening. And we just started to hang out more and started getting proximity, started doing more hangouts. We did this thing called Coffee and Creatives at this coffee shop, and we were just like, where are all the creatives at? Like, there's something here that's happening. Let's just keep on creating and collaborating. And then we got super heavy into like YouTube and social media and stuff like that. And then he just took off. Like, it was just like the commitment to consistency. Literally, I don't think I've ever met someone so committed, and not only committed, but like he does his research, and he's one of the most smartest guys I've known. And we just built a great relationship, and it just kind of took off from there.
Oh yeah, and it's incredible to see, like, we're actually filming Grow with Video live.
Yeah.
It's coming back, in April. And he's got some of the top, like Cody Sanchez, Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
And I'm just like seeing where Sean has taken his company in the short amount of time. Yeah. It's just incredible. And that core group in Vegas now, it's just blossoming. Yeah. And now you're in Nashville.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So if this audience is meeting for the first time, discuss like what your journey was. Like, I want to hear how you started and kind of like give them an example about where you are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I was born and raised in LA, if you can't tell. I have like this LA looking accent. I sound like a Ninja Turtle. No, but like from LA, I was born and raised there, but I come from a Filipino home, Asian culture. So like my mom, she was a nurse and she became a health inspector. And in my home, when you grew up, you're just like, you're going to be either a male man or a male nurse. So it's like, you don't have any other option, right? So like, you're going to go either become a nurse or get like a government job. And I was like, that's just not my vibe, growing up. And my dad, he was a Vietnam vet. So like he came, and when they raised me, I was adopted as a baby.
No way.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. That's for another podcast. Right. But like, I grew up in a culture where like creativity wasn't a thing, and this was in the 80s and 90s. Okay. So like, this was like, internet wasn't really there yet, no social media, nothing like that. So I started with filming photography, doing like a lot of photography, because my dad, being a Vietnam vet, he would come to America and just like capture everything. So he would come and just capture everything. Like, he would document everything because he was from a different country, and he just like look in and be like, so I grew up with that kind of mentality of document always, right? So I picked up a camera at a very young age, and I think my first words were content or something like that, I forget. But I learned in the darkroom, I was 10 years old, producing, pretty much developing film in the darkroom, and then I just fell in love with the creativity because you could just think of something out of nothing and create something that people can enjoy and appreciate. And I was just so fascinated by that at an early age. And I was like, this is just what I want to do. I just want to create. So I started filming my friends who were skateboarders and stuff like that. And punk rock, hip hop, and skateboarding raised me. You know, so like I started just doing that for fun. And then we had a local skate shop that they were a part of. Like they were kind of like not pro skaters, but they're like amateur skaters. And they're like, hey, can we use your photos for like our stuff? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. Then I started doing video. I picked up a video camera at like 10, 11.
Nice.
And then I started filming my friend's skateboard. And then they're like, hey, can we sell your, you know, videos at our shop? And I was like, heck yeah, go ahead. I was like 11 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I was working off Windows Movie Maker. And then I graduated to Final Cut, and then Final Cut to Adobe and all that stuff. And that was my journey a little bit. But then I graduated high school and went to film school right away, Santa Monica. So I did 6 years in film school, but it was only a 2-year program. It took 6 years because I was working in the industry. So like I was starting to work as a PA, and I started doing all these jobs, and I eventually started directing my own music videos and commercials, and started getting hired by Capitol Records, Entertainment, Interscope. So I started working in the industry at a very young age. I opened my first warehouse at 20 with my name on it. It was a 1,500 square foot warehouse, and I was doing screen printing, and I was doing media. But I failed a lot. So like 20 years old, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm so ambitious doing this because I'm the first in my family that's pursuing creativity and making, you know, income doing it. And that's never been done in my family. They're all like nurses and doctors and lawyers and stuff. And I was just like, you know, kind of like the black sheep of the family. But then I failed big time. I shut that company down the first year because I didn't know anything about, you know, sales. I didn't know anything about taxes. I didn't know nothing about nothing. So I shut it down, went broke, and I was just like, I gotta learn from this. So a year after that was the first time I made 6 figures as a creative. And I was like, this is where it's at. This is how you do it. This is how the greats do it. They just build a repertoire. They build like a Rolodex, like so old-fashioned of, you know, companies that they work with. And like, what else can I do? What more work? So I started growing in that, and then that led to being a part of a drum company called Battlefield Drums at the time. Became like the CMO of that, like marketed it, rebranded the whole company, took it to top 4 in the country for the Drum magazine in 2010. And it was just a wild ride from there. And then after that, I owned a few other companies as a CMO and partial owner of the companies. Took those things from zero and just learned everything that I learned. I just applied it and I started in MySpace when MySpace came out in 2003, designed MySpace pages for local bands, and then grew from there. Took that into Facebook, took that into Instagram, took that into YouTube when it blew up in 2006. It was a long journey, but long journey short, you know, I left those companies, exited those when I got married, and was like, what's the next thing? And so moved back to Vegas from LA. Worked on the Las Vegas, you know, the brand, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I had this amazing opportunity to rebrand the city, which was phenomenal. And all that time, me and Sean and everybody were still in contact doing YouTube stuff, you know, and we're just having fun doing it. And it was just like, dude, nothing could stop this wave of just social media and growing and all that stuff. And gained a lot of huge experience, worked with a lot of wonderful people like Gary Vaynerchuk and all them, you know, and made a lot of friends in this industry. And that taught me a lot about the idea of you can't just be like just this glorified freelancer. You have to tie that to results and outcomes.
Smart.
And over the years, I've developed this mentality of like this business creative aspect of having like this executive level of creativity, because when you're working with executives, which I've learned in the corporate world, like the executives get paid not because of their skill set, but because of their temperament on how they handle situations and how they navigate and manage people. So like for me, I've had to learn how to live like an executive creative and optimize and delegate and build departments and teams and manage them and inspire them and kind of just like help bring the vision as a creative. Because like, you could either be a creative that's a freelancer and you're just chasing jobs, you don't know where it's coming from, kind of like, it's not like repetitive, it's not predictable.
Right.
But once you start getting into the business side of creativity, then it becomes predictable because you're creating like you're now creating a company. And a company, that whole definition means you're in company with people. You're not a business no more. You're a company. You're not just a solopreneur anymore. You're on a mission with people that you're nurturing and you're responsible for.
Oh yeah.
And you're all going towards the same goal. And now there's like an ethos and, and kind of like a direction and a mission, like what Sean's did with Think. It started with Sean.
Yep.
I don't think that Sean, and he probably says it himself, you know, he didn't think it was going to be what it is today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's because he was just like, I just wanted to get into YouTube and make full-time income through YouTube. And that kind of blew up into like, well, I can teach people how to do this now.
Exactly.
All right, well, now I can do this. Now I have a team of 20-something people that are W2. I'm just like, dude, this is amazing.
Right.
You know, and I know that's like, oh, man, God did it all. It's like, dude, you got to put the work in. So, like, I honestly, whenever people be like, it's all God, I'm like, no, it's not just all God. God paved the way, but you had to hustle and you had to put in the work. And I don't think that people get enough credit for putting in that work. You know? But,
and what an incredible story, John. And you know, like describe, like there's a lot of freelancers out here, and I've actually known a couple people in the industry where they're, you know, going, I love the camera, I love filmmaking.
Yeah.
They go hard for a year and then they're burnt out, they're tired, and they just don't want to pick up a camera because they didn't build the systems, the platforms to build their business.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples of what you can do if you are a freelancer to get to the next level building a company?
Oh, absolutely. Remember the story I told you about how I failed when I was 20? I failed because I built a business that I couldn't scale and I was a bottleneck. So I started hating the craft.
Yeah.
And when you start, like, you get into photography and film because you love the craft, you love working with people, you love the artwork of it. But then when you have to start doing it on your own, you have to start paying your bills and all that stuff, you kind of just take on jobs that you just hate. And then you're just like, well, I need the money. And like, I don't even want to pick up a camera anymore because I'm so burnt out.
Right.
I don't know, I'm wearing many hats. So a lot of freelancers start off with this big giant hat that they have to wear. And it's like designed for like 12 people, but they put on, you know, the marketing hat, the sales hat, the standard operating procedure hat, the business hat, the tax hat, like the editor, the shooter, the production planner, the coordinator, the event, you know, like, so you're wearing all these hats, but you never thought you'd go into it wearing all these hats. But then you realize that you're not getting paid enough because these are all separate jobs. Right? So like when people say like, well, can I do it for $500? I'm like, $500 will buy a ticket to get to where you need to go. But like, yo, we got like for us, we have like 11 people on one client, you know? We have a project manager, 3 editors, a designer, social media manager, research development, copywriter, and you know, what's it called? And yeah, so it's like all there. So it's just like all these people take, you know, they take a portion of the job and then collectively they get to an outcome. So if you're a freelancer, the first thing that I would do is ask yourself, what do you love about what you do and what do you hate about what you do?
Oh, good.
Start outsourcing what you don't like doing or what takes up the most time that you just don't get joy from.
Yeah.
So if it's editing, right, or if, like for a lot of freelancers, it's editing. They just like, it's just so tedious. It takes up so much time. I can't even work on my business. I'm in late in the wee hours just tweaking things and making sure like how many final versions do I got to create on my desktop. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. So like for me, my first outsource was I need to find editors. I need to find people that know and can edit. And here's the problem. And Sean, I was on a I'm gonna date myself, Clubhouse. Yeah. Remember Clubhouse?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was on Sean's Clubhouse and he was doing a Q&A and I was like, hey bro, this is when I just launched my company. It was an agency at first and I was like, we're not an agency. We just don't do agency stuff. We're a company. All right. So when we made that shift, that's when everything changed. Like when my mentality changed, my language changed, everything changed when we turned it from we're not an agency, we're a company. Nice. He said to me, he's like, John, you're a perfectionist, man. Like this is before we launched. This was just solo John pulling some friends together, saying, all right, I got a sales team, and everyone's gonna just kind of startup mode. So like if we blow this thing up, everyone's gonna get a piece of the pie. It's gonna be great, you know. Right. Like it just like doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
But he said, John, you're a perfectionist, man. I'm looking at your profile photo and like you designed it so well. Like your bottleneck, bro, is like no one could do it better than you.
Oh.
And I was like, oh man, that's hard. And I was like, you could either punch him in the face, or you could take what he says and really understand and be like, all right, I got to learn from this.
Yeah.
So I decided to punch him in the face. No, I'm just kidding. I decided to learn from it. I'm like, Sean, dude, you're the man. I love learning from you. You're obviously doing this with your company, and I aspire to build my own company.
Yeah.
So I need to start outsourcing my stuff. So the thing that I had to learn was my dad called me jack of all trades, king of none growing up.
Okay.
And my response was like, Dad, I love everything. I want to be a king of everything. So I learned in my first year of college in film school was like the 10,000 hour rule, right?
Smart. Yep.
So the thing was like, all I do is got to clock in 10,000 hours in one department and I'll be good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to master everything. And the thing in my 20s is I had time to do it. Like I wasn't married, I wasn't dating, I wasn't doing nothing. I was just like, I'm just gonna learn. Every year, I'm gonna take on a project and put in 10,000 hours that year on this one craft. So lighting, photography, sound, editing, all those crafts, I took my whole 20s, marketing, branding, all those things. I dedicated a whole entire year of mastering that craft until I got it, and I was very obsessed.
Yeah.
I became very obsessed about it. So like when I did build the company, I was able to tell my team, hey, you're my editors. I'm gonna spend like literally months with you and I'm gonna teach you my ways. So I like Yoda, Jedi, like just taught. So for 3-4 months straight, I spent one-on-one time with my VA team, just teaching them how I do it. My workflow, how do I create copywriting? How do I use social media research? How do I make thumbnails? How do I do design? How do I edit? Like I started imparting the lessons into my team and it started becoming me. So everything that they were producing, even my clients were like, dude, John, you crushed it. I was like, that's my team. He's like, no, I seen you edit. Like, you did this. I'm like, my team did this. I didn't even touch editing. So we had to create a process and system of every department and create how they operate and how everyone communicates to each other.
Smart.
And then we also had to add more people to our team. So like sales department, clients, we call them client obsessed department. So like, who are the people that are making sure that the clients were thinking 5 steps ahead of what they need? Right, and that ties to business development and sales. So like I had to think differently, you know, when it came to being a creative and executive creative from freelance. So if you're just a freelancer and you're just starting, figure out what part you don't like or what's taking up your most time. So like some freelancers like, I love editing. Like I'll just find someone that knows how to shoot. So they just shoot and they just give me the footage and I'll just be this all day.
Exactly.
You know, because a lot of people are introverts, so they're just like their you know, like their space. You know, but find something and start outsourcing it one thing at a time. Don't go all in. Like, do not do what I did and like hire 7 people up front and say, because you can't nurture those people. So like, I was like, all right, I hired them. I was like, this isn't gonna work. Let's dial it down to 3. So I started training like slowly, and then I started getting it, and it took time. I think that's the tension that people feel because they want it right away. They do. The instant gratification. But the reality is like, dude, building takes time, and going from freelancer to solopreneur to entrepreneur, it takes like experience. It takes time to do it. You know, so give yourself some grace and give yourself like about 18 months.
Oh yeah, and that's so powerful. And like that's why I see a lot of people in this industry where it's like they are doing it one man. I've literally been in that same boat where I'm producing content, I'm editing, I'm doing the thumbnails, I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the taxes. But you realize at that stage where you can get everything and pull back, and you go, I learned these skills over the last 2-3 years, how to film, how to edit, but now I could teach somebody. Now I could really get into the bones and say, hey, this is how we do things around here. And then you look at that video and you're like, did I edit it? No, somebody else edited it. Did I film that? No, somebody else did. And it's just these repeatable steps. And I was reading this book the other day, you know, if you can, you know, plan and systematize your business around what you love to do, you're never going to work a day. I know that's a cliche thing.
It's true. It's a cliche for a reason.
But
you don't work when you love what you do. And when you build a culture, a strong company, meaning like you're in company with like-minded people that respect you, that look to you for leadership, that are inspired by your work ethic, and that you're putting in more work than they are, and they're like trying to keep up, but they're also living out their passion in their field because they want to do that thing, and this is the opportunity for it. Has to align with what they want to do in life and the direction. So like anytime we onboard a new, employee or staff member, I'm like, hey, this is either a train stop for you where you're going to get to learn and grow, or this is a lifer position, meaning like you just love our culture so much and you love the work that you do that you don't really want to leave. So we've had a lot of our teams for many years because they're just like, we're here wherever you go, John, we're going.
Right.
Because we built such a camaraderie and such a, I don't know, like our culture is really strong. So
it's that community aspect. So like a lot of people we were literally just talking about this literally today, in the photography, videography side, there's a lot of competition. And a lot of creatives, like in the beginning, they don't want to work with somebody or just say, hey, here's a gig, can you help me out? What would you say about that culture? I would say you don't want to be in that culture. You want to find people that you know, like, and trust, and build a community around it, and that's what you have done.
Yeah, I think this is gonna hurt you. So if you're watching and this hurts, I'm not sorry. But collaboration happens at the top, competition happens in the bottom.
Oh.
So the idea, if you're competing, that means that you're insecure about what you do, how you do it, because you haven't put in enough time. So the idea here is that you're not confident, and you probably are looking for more work and you want to be known. So you just got to kill that ego and start collaborating, because you never know how you could learn. Because the first day of my class in film class, my teacher told me, he's like, John, there's going to be an editor and director that is way better than you, always in your career. So kill your ego and just be a learner.
Oof.
And that transformed the way I thought about creativity, because I'm like, am I going to be collaborative or am I going to be competitive? And when I was growing up in LA, there wasn't many of us. And then the boom, when Canon released their DSLR, their Mark II, and digital video started coming into the scene. Yeah. People could go to Best Buy and buy a camera and be like, I'm a filmmaker now. And I'm just like,
right.
Well, I got $100,000 of student debt to show you that you're not a filmmaker. You know what I mean? But at the idea, I could have either been bitter about it, or I could have been challenged to be like, I want to collaborate more because the space is moving so fast. Yes. So anyone, and I guess my ethos or the values that I carry is everyone's a creative, and we're all here because God designed us to be in community and collaborate together. And it's dude, there's things you do that I absolutely cannot do. Yeah. There's things you do that I can't do. People have their gifts and their passions. I'm not trying to have the monopoly on give things or passions. That's a race to the bottom. Yes. So if you're creative and you're a freelancer and you're really this with your creativity, you're I want to be known. You can't receive like this. You just can't. You got to live like this, and you gotta open your hands, because you could give and you could also receive, and it's an ecosystem of creativity, because there's something that someone has that can give you something that you never learned before, a technique or a way they do things. But there's also things that they can learn from you, so don't be greedy about it. And if you are, then you're in the wrong community. You know what I mean? Go find somewhere else, or just go chase out. I'm telling you, it's really lonely when you get to that point. Oh, yeah. And if it's lonely at the top, you did it wrong. So you want to make sure that you live this collaborative lifestyle, regardless of where you're at in your journey. And here's the thing: a lot of people I started this when I was in 2000s. I'm just shut up, Dude, I've been in this for so long, but I'm still learning from people every single day. Yes. And I'm not gonna tell people here's my resume of all these celebrities I work with. Yeah, it's true, but dude, I got so much to learn from you. And a new creative that just picked up their camera, because they have a different lens of life, and they have a unique story, and God literally designed them differently than me. And I just believe that everybody has a story, and I could learn something from them. So that translates into creativity too. So I want to collaborate with all the creatives. Yeah. And if you're creatives, that means we have a brother and sisterhood. That means that we have something in common. That means that we can collaborate, and we have something in common to talk about and just pursue. So. Oh yeah,
and 100% agree. For everybody out here on my audience, it's it was always collaboration, relationships over the money. Yeah. And some people I've seen, it's money over the relationships, and it's just you know how it is.
I met creatives, bro. Probably they're 3 months into their creative journey, and they're I'm asking them hey, do you want to do this project? They're well, I charge $1,200. I'm when did you start? They're 3 months ago. I got this gear, and I'm just Dude, I started, and I still do this stuff for free, always.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, I've been doing stuff for free since the day one, and I won't ever stop doing stuff for free. But yeah, we charge like 10, 15, 20K for projects and stuff. But like, dude, I will literally, it's relationship first for me.
Yes, me too.
Right? So like relationship first, it's like, dude, I have the skill and talent, and I live like this, right?
Yes.
Like, so first of all, like, this is what I teach my kids, right? My boys, I have them hold their hands out, and I'm like, all right, repeat after me. And they're like, okay. And they're like, I say, I have everything I need, right? And they're like, I have everything I need, right? So if you have everything you need, you don't have to say, you know, like, you don't have to scrounge in the bottom of the barrel and be like, oh, it's all about money for me, right? Like, there's so many relationships that I have in my life that are so rich. I feel so wealthy.
Yes.
And like, it is priceless. Because I, like, our relationship, bro, like, you can't buy that.
You can't.
You know what I mean? The fact that we're just sitting here in this crazy, amazing facility, and like, life just brought us here, and we're rocking. We got FX30s, like the world, you know, and we're just talking about creativity. Like, you can't buy that. And I think that the creatives that do think money first is it's a scarcity mentality.
It is.
And it's a very low frequency type of mindset of like, there's not enough work for me, or I can't get it. Maybe they're like, they can't pay their bills. It all stems from somewhere. So in context, like, it's like, where does that come from? And then sometimes they just need to learn, like, hey, let me just teach you, you know, about business. Let me teach you about building relationships and how this works.
Exactly.
You know, we build a relationship. That's opens a door for a multitude of opportunities.
Oh, it is. And I had this one guy, literally been mentoring him over the last year. And he was like first in the business. He's like, oh, I could charge, you know, like $1,200, $1,500 a day. And I'm like, you're doing it wrong. You know, build these relationships, because the relationships are what true wealth is. Yeah. Because it's like, that's what makes people, like, that's what makes you tick. Like, it's like you said, it's just, we're out here because of the relationships we built, and like the people, and the key word is community, like that community that you surround yourself in.
Bro, the reason why, and I feel like a Joseph story, you know, like I went from the pit to the palace. Yeah. You know, like I'm here, like, you know, me and my whole crew, we run all the AV for this whole like facility.
Right. Talk about, like, right now we are in the Greatness Factory in Nashville. So talk about a little bit about what you're doing, what you're building out. Like, you just gave me a tour. Yeah. And the people I'm meeting, I'm blown away. Like, share with the audience, like, it's so cool.
Yeah, dude, the Greatness Factory is an idea that came from Coach Michael Burt. He's a best-selling author. He's written 20 books. He coached a championship women's league basketball team and stuff like that. But he tours the world and he shares his story. He's a keynote speaker. But he dreamt this idea of having a factory in Nashville that manufactured greatness. So it's a place for entrepreneurs to achieve their greatness and to be surrounded in proximity. Literally, the whole idea and concept is being in proximity with people that are achieving greatness and impact in the world. So you're in a facility that is this incubator for entrepreneurs. Wow. And a lot of it stems from the foundation of content making and production. So this facility is 3 stories. There's a WeWork kind of facility downstairs where there's co-work. We can't say WeWork, but co-working space. Right? And then the second floor is like offices for people that, you know, work out of this place. And the third floor is where all the facility stuff happens, like the events, the podcasts, like where we're at now, the Money Lab and stuff. This is where ideas get born and they turn to greatness. So this whole thing happened because of relationships. Yeah. And here's the funny thing. I didn't take one paycheck, not one dime, to build this thing or to build off of this relationship. It's all collaborative. It is. We said, hey, we're going to facilitate our engineers. This is how we struck the deal. And it's through our friends, you know. And it's like one person knew another person, and they just won't stop talking about, you know, the things that I've done and what our company's done for them, because we're obsessed with just helping people. And they're like, you got to meet John. And then we met, and then all this stuff happened because of relationship. And they're like, I was like, look, I'm not here to I could send you a bill, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is say, look, you need this. Let's collaborate. I'll facilitate my engineers, and then we'll make money together. How about that? Smart. You know? So let's just make money together. And it was just like you can't say no to that. You can't, So that's how we struck the deal, and now we're in here and we run it, and we built so much trust and rapport that we're going to be building out all the other factories as well. Right. So it's all based out of relationship without an agenda of like money first. It's relationship first.
And that's so important, and that's how we've built our, you know, business as well. It's just like, how can I help you get to the next level? How can we all win together?
Yes.
And like each person has each strength to the piece of the pie, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And when you can figure that out, sky's the limit, because God's using their gifts and their talents. Say editing's a burden, but He is an amazing editor.
That's right.
That's what it's about.
That's right, man. And it has to be like what Michael Scott says, a win-win-win. Well, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. But like, are you open to finding win-win-win opportunities in your career when it comes to creativity and freelancing?
Yeah.
What would it look like if you're just open to the ideas of collaborating with other people, finding strengths in other people, bringing people in? You know, maybe you got a deal and you're like, oh, you know, maybe I could split this deal with someone that we could build a relationship with, you know? So like everybody could win. So there's so much of that synergy and camaraderie here in Nashville, but also in Vegas. We see that in Vegas,
Exactly.
you know? And like, there's just so much out there. It just can't, not one person could take it all. So might as well work together.
So true.
Yeah.
And John, anything else? Like, we're gonna wrap this up. This has been phenomenal for the viewer, and your content and your value. Like, just your story has impacted my life. Just listening to you today, and I'm just like, just blessed to hear your story.
So rad, man.
And that just it's truly heartfelt, and it gets me pumped up.
Yeah.
Right. But talk about, if you can give one piece of advice to somebody about creating their business, starting. What would the advice be?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the obvious one is like, lean on God's understanding. Obviously, I think that's a given, but that's not the true one. Obviously, it's like, trust God. Yeah. He's the writer of the story. Just lean on Him, trust Him, right? That's all I could say about that. But I think like one solid piece of advice is fail fast, like fail often. Like if you have an idea, right, like challenge it. And just go for it. Because I think a lot of creators are like, dude, I have all these ambitions and ideas. They have a million ideas just like me, but they are not great executors. Yep. So like the ideas are there, but they never executed on it. They just stayed up there. Yep. So like there's this thing about like, hey, you have great intentions, but it doesn't really matter until it puts to action. Yep. So as a creative, if you have an idea, run with it, test it, learn from it, and adapt. So we have a saying in our company, TLA all day. TLA means test, learn, adapt, right? So if you're gonna go out there in the world and you have this big vision and you wanna make 6 figures as a creative or beyond, you wanna reach those $1 million, you have to start somewhere. So test your ideas, learn from it, and adapt from it, and always be evolving. And don't be afraid to let something that has been so close to your heart fail and go, like let it go. We call this hyper prototyping. So like hyper prototyping, and I'm going into this rant. Like,
I'm learning right now.
Dude, I've probably rebranded my personal brand like about 16, 17 times.
I've seen it.
You've seen the growth, you've seen the changes. It's me hyper prototyping what makes sense for that season, what's clinging on, what's growing, and what's helping. Yeah. So I think a lot of creatives are afraid because they get too connected to their one idea that they thought was like, I'm falling in love with this so much, and I can't let it go, even if it's to the detriment of making them broke and kind of like just burned out. They're like, I just need this thing to work. It's like, no, just kill it. Yeah. Like, just kill it and move to the next one. And you gotta like learn how to let go, because God's a creative God and you're designed in His image, so you're also creative. So guess what? That idea, even though it might be the wrong season, which means it's the wrong idea for that season. Right. You might put it on the back pocket for a different season, but move to the next season of flow. So you wanna go towards the flow, in your flow zone, and not away from it, because you're going to get hurt when you start going against the grain or against the waves or against the wind. So like what I've learned, especially in creativity, is like, where's the flow happening? Can I ride that and use my skill set? Because it's not supposed to be a wrestling match with creativity. Like it has to be smooth. And the thing is, when you feel like you're fighting, that's when you got to sit back and be like, man, where's all this tension coming from? Like, where's all this frustration coming from? Like, am I not in my flow zone? And then you got to ask yourself, well, who do I surround myself with? Because that's the number one thing, is like, dude, who you surround yourself with is going to identify, like really set your atmosphere. Like, so like get plugged into a Bible study, get plugged into other creatives, be a part of a creative community. And your mindset's going to shift and change, So I know there's a lot of like one thing's in there, but I hope there's something in there maybe for the season that you're at right now, that you could take away from that. So.
And I think God has plans where different seasons in your life, you're not always ready for that season.
No.
And you have to learn through these different seasons, your trials, your tribulations, to see growth in yourself, in the community, because I've always wanted to go. I was like, I could get here to here, but I'm like, God didn't want me to get here to here. He made us like continue to learn, grow each and every day. And like people want it so fast, but take back your, the grasp on everything. So
I think like slow down, man.
Yeah.
Like that was the biggest, hardest advice Sean gave me.
Right.
I was wanting to grow too fast, and then he told me a story about healthy growth over hyper growth, and I slowed down, and that's when things started working.
Wow, incredible. And John, where could they find you? More value, YouTube, Instagram?
Yeah, I'm everywhere at John Mediana. You spell Mediana, Mediana. Media is in my last name, so I feel like I was born to do media. So check me out anywhere, everywhere. Check out what our company does, executivebrandgrowth.com. Go check it out, and find me on everything. That's it. Yeah.
Right. It couldn't have been a better episode. Like I said, totally God's plan today.
Yeah, totally.
And just to be able to sit here, not even knowing we were going to do this, not planned, and just to get, hear your story. Like I said, it's truly heartfelt. And thanks for the time showing me the Greatness Factory and just what you got going on.
Yeah,
So
love you,
brother.
man.
Oh yeah.